So, have you ever felt like you're just a pawn in someone else's game? You know, like you're being moved around and you don't even know the rules? Well, today we're diving deep into the playbook of the powerful. We're talking about Robert Greene's super famous and, yeah, pretty controversial classic, The 48 Laws of Power. This is a book that people either see as this brilliant manual for success or, a downright sinister guide to manipulation.
And really, this entire book boils down to one huge question. Is power an art, or is it a science? I mean, are some people just born with this magnetic charisma, or is it a skill, something you can actually learn, practice, and get really, really good at? Well, Robert Greene's answer is pretty straightforward. For him, it's a science, plain and simple.
So what does that even mean? At its core, the book is saying that power isn't some kind of magical, mystical force. Nope, it's a social game. You got it, a game, with its own set of rules, its own patterns, and its own strategies. And here's the kicker. Whether we like it or not, we're all playing this game every single day, at the office, with our friends, even within our own families.
And get this, Greene didn't just pull these rules out of thin air. He literally spent years digging through history, dissecting the lives of the most powerful people who ever lived. We're talking about everyone from the master strategist Sun Tzu to the incredibly cunning Machiavelli, from ruthless queens to, even brilliant con artists. He took all their secrets, all their moves, and boiled them down into 48, let's call them potent, laws of power.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to explore those unspoken rules of power. Then we'll talk about mastering your own image, which is huge. After that, it's all about controlling the game itself. And of course, we're going to have to tackle the big controversy around this book. Finally, we'll wrap it all up with a final takeaway.
Okay, let's jump right in. First up, we're laying the foundation, the unspoken rules of power. So, the first and maybe the most important rule of all is that you have to shift your mindset. See, to really play the game of power, you've got to stop reacting with raw emotion and start observing like a strategist. It's all about seeing situations for what they actually are, not what you wish they were. It's about acting with a clear intention, not just on a whim or an impulse. And that right there, that's the real difference between being a pawn and a player.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do that? Well, that leads us right into our next section, which is the first big battleground for power, mastering your image.
Let's kick things off with one of the most powerful and honestly kind of counterintuitive laws in the whole book. Law number 4, always say less than necessary. I mean, sounds simple, doesn't it? But trust me, the power packed into that short sentence is just immense. Think about it. The logic is just so powerful. When you're constantly talking, you run the risk of saying something, well, dumb, and you make yourself seem ordinary. But silence? Silence makes other people really uncomfortable. They feel this need to rush in and fill that void. And when they do that, they often reveal their own intentions, their own weaknesses. You end up gaining a ton of information while giving absolutely none away.
But hey, it's not all about being quiet and mysterious. That's just one side of the coin. On the complete flip side, you've got laws like this one. Law number 6, court attention at all cost.
Now, this law points to a pretty cold, hard truth about our social worlds. Being ignored is basically a death sentence. I mean, to have any power at all, people first have to know you even exist, right? The book argues you have to stand out, you have to be talked about. And here's the controversial part. Even negative attention is better than being totally invisible. Why? Because once you have their attention, you've got a starting point, a foothold to start building your influence.
Okay, so you're working on your image, you're getting noticed. But what about the actual moves you make on the board? Well, that brings us perfectly to our next big idea, controlling the game.
This whole section is about making that huge shift from just reacting to things to becoming a true strategist. And Law 29 is the perfect example. It tells us to plan all the way to the end. See, while most people are just caught up in the heat of the moment, the truly powerful are always thinking several moves ahead.
You know, most of us, we just think about our immediate goal, what's right in front of us. But Greene pushes for a totally different approach. He says you have to start with the end in mind. You've got to think through every possible consequence, every potential roadblock, every single move your opponents might make, because when that ending is crystal clear in your head, all the chaos that happens in the middle can't throw you off course.
And well, this is where the book really gets its reputation. Some of these laws, they get dark. They really force you to look at the more manipulative side of human nature. Just take a look at Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. Yeah, you heard that right. The logic behind this one is chilling
but also incredibly effective. Just one single, well-timed act of kindness can create this halo of goodwill around you. It completely disarms suspicion. It lulls people into a false sense of security, and that's when they drop their guard. This law is a stark reminder of how even our best qualities, like honesty and generosity, can be turned into weapons in this game of power.
And a law like that naturally leads us to the big central debate about this whole book. Is it a practical guide for people who are ambitious, or is it more of a warning sign, about the predators that might be walking among us?
Really, you can look at this in two completely different ways. On the one hand, you could read the 48 Laws of Power as a defensive manual. It gives you the tools to recognize when these tactics are being used against you, which helps you protect yourself. But on the other hand, let's be honest, it is undeniably a playbook. It's a step-by-step guide on how to manipulate, deceive, and, dominate other people. The thing is, the book itself doesn't take a moral stand. It just lays out the strategies, raw and unfiltered.
So, where does all that leave us? What are we supposed to take away from such a dense and, let's face it, controversial book? Okay, let's get to the final takeaway.
All right, here's the really crucial takeaway. Whether you see these laws as tools for offense or for defense, the book is arguing that the underlying skills are absolutely essential. It's about training yourself to be a sharp, astute observer of human nature. It's about mastering your own emotions first, before you even try to influence anybody else. It's about seeing past what people say and understanding their real motives. And of course, it's about always thinking several moves ahead.
And all of that brings us to the final, lingering question that the book really leaves you with. It kind of forces you to turn the spotlight on your own life and ask a tough question. In this inescapable game of power that we are all playing, are you consciously making moves as a player? Or are you just being moved around the board like a pawn?